Come over here to your seats. Hope everyone likes the venue. If you're here for the first time, if you're returning, thanks for coming out. You can see that we have this beautifully refurbished building here. It's part of the Cambridge City government, and it's run by a non-profit organization. They do really great work. They have a QR code outside if anyone would like to make a donation to them. They do really wonderful work. This is kind of like a makerspace. This is a community space, and we thought, being right here in the most innovative square mile on Earth. Now, some may disagree with me. I was in Eindhoven, in Netherlands, so they call that the most innovative square mile. So, but that was a few years ago, so maybe we've taken that over. The kind of the Silicon Valley of Massachusetts here. So we're in a great spot to be here in the Kendall MIT Square. And when we moved in here about a year and a half ago in this area, we said, we wonder why there weren't more events related to those using or really applying emerging technologies to share their real life experiences and real-world applications with their friends and colleagues here in the area. So that's the whole reason that we started this forum, this event. We wanted it to be completely unbiased, objective. So as of now, we don't have any sponsors, and we don't promote anything. We all have companies, we all have interests in various relationship models and things like that. We wanted to be completely objective in sharing, so that we could make real change and have a real impact. And so that's the whole idea, the vision of what we're doing. We had to pick a theme. People said, why DCTs? We did pick decentralized clinical trials, but it does incorporate, just like a lot of the emerging technologies right here that are layered in. We do sometimes cover AI drug discovery. We cover, like we are tonight, we're going to cover leadership and things like that without, you could not gain adoption of these technologies. So we call this DCTs Unfolded, Pharma's Paradigm Shift, and this is our 10th month of having these. And let's move to our keynotes. I'd like to introduce Rojas, hopefully pronounced correctly, strategic advisor in people-centric digital transformation, global leader in data, digital transformation, and HR, former head of data, digital, and technology for corporate functions at Takeda Pharmaceuticals, led transformative initiatives in 50+ countries, enhancing workplace experiences and HR strategies. We were kind of comparing notes from some of the dozens of countries we've both been in, so it was interesting. Combines technology with people-focused strategies to drive organizational change, has background in chemistry and information systems, grew up in Colombia, lived in the US and UK. And Luis is passionate about fostering high-performance teams, strategic partnerships, and trust through transparency. Round of applause for Luis.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try something without the microphone. See if that works. Partly, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yes. I was raised in Colombia, and like a good Latin, I talk with my hands. So I want to make sure that I can actually use both hands. David, thank you for the introduction.
Take over your seat.
Yes, please. One of the things that David shared, it's a little bit on the personal side about being born in the US, raised in Colombia, but I want to complement that. I've been married over 30 years. We both raised 4 wonderful young adults. I love the outdoors. I just spent a few weeks in New Zealand. If you haven't been there, add it to your bucket list. Why do I share that? Because I think it's something that no one don't tend to do. When we're actually in the office, we tend to become transactional. I have taken a different approach. I tend to really focus on the personal side, the human side. With AI, with all the technology, I always say kind of slow down. When somebody says, hey, do you have that report? Good morning, how was your weekend? It builds that relationship that helps when you're engaging in difficult conversations. So I'm going to start with a personal story. This photo was taken in one of my happiest days of my life. And that's my daughter's wedding. What you see is my daughter, my wife, Lourdes, my daughter's name is Nicole, and me. I knew that day that I had a number of jobs. One of those jobs is rooted in tradition. Tradition that has been around for centuries, which says that it is the father and the father alone that walks the daughter down the aisle. So, you can imagine how I felt when my daughter said, Dad, I want you and Mom to walk me down the aisle. It took me by surprise. That was one of my jobs. And I've learned also when that happens to slow down, to get curious, and to ask why. And that's exactly what I did. And what she said really moved me. She said, Dad, you and Mom have been married over 30 years. I see that love, that respect that you have for each other. I want that unity and that partnership to help me get started in my marriage life. How can you say no to that? Plus, it was her day, not my day. Right? I wanted to make sure that she was happy. That happens so often in a business setting, where we have traditions, we have processes, we ask questions around, hey, they have a better idea, like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Or we've always done it this way. I think we need a new perspective. We need a younger voice. We need different ideas. And DCTs, you guys are breaking through that. But change is hard. Good news is that I will share a few tips and a framework on how to lead change successfully. So I have good news and bad news. The bad news is that most transformations fail. Whether it's a global transformation, whether it's a functional transformation, and it's even lower for digital transformations. That for business transformations about a 30% success rate. Digital transformations, based on a McKinsey and a BCG study, is about 20%. And by 2027, we're expected to be investing about $4 trillion in digital transformation. 20% success rate, and we're spending that kind of money? The good news is that there is a different way. And that way is not about command and control. That way really is about empowering your teams to collaborate, to engage, to generate and create ideas. Those 4 disasters that you see on that slide, every single one of those could have been prevented if leaders would have taken the time to listen with the intent of being influenced, or if engineers or team members had a little bit more courage to speak up. And I know sometimes that's hard, but you need that courage to speak up. Now, I've said leaders need to listen. I like to know my audience. Who here is a leader in the organization? There's a few hands that I did not see. So for this presentation, I want to kind of set the ground and the definition of a leader. everyone is the leader. It's not your level in the organization. It's not how close to the CEO. It's not whether you manage teams or not. If you happen to be an individual contributor, you're also a leader. You're leading yourself. You're leading the work that you manage. And in many cases, you have a bigger challenge, which is you're influencing many others without the direct responsibility. You all are leaders. And that's going to be important, whether you happen to be a project manager, a product manager, if you implement the technology, everyone's a leader. Okay, now, so today's not about just personal stories. Maybe it's the scientist in me. I need research. I need data. Show me that this works. And the good news is that there are hundreds of thousands of books and articles that have been written about a new way of leading. I just finished 2 books over the last month. Multipliers, and I don't know if I have it here. I don't have it. It's a book by Adam Grant, Hidden Potential. If you lead teams or you have a difficult environment at work, read Multipliers. It's a great read. But there's a science behind the new leadership. And I think we're at an inflection point between those probably in my generation that were led from a command and control. We as leaders had to have the answer. We as leaders, we were the ones telling people what to do. Leaders are now changing. We need to take the time to listen, to foster an environment. I heard somebody say, as leaders and as managers, our responsibility is to manage the energy of the team. And I love that. Okay, so the framework that is based on the research has 6 pillars. Purpose, engagement, outcomes, planning, leadership, and of course, execution. The acronym for the 6 pillars, not surprisingly, spells the word P. Because at the heart of every change is people. You start with those that are leading the change, those that are impacted by the change, those that need to adopt that technology or the change. We tend to really focus on the technology, the process. We need to focus on people. And this framework, actually, which is based on the research, shows that you can improve your success rate by following it. Okay, first one is purpose. Purpose is what gives work meaning. Do you come into the office and do you feel like you're layering bricks? Or do you know the cathedral or the temple that you're building? That's what purpose gives you. And when we have a big change, a big transformation, what happens? Leaders spend a lot of time focusing on kind of like the why and competitive environment or the efficiency they want to drive. And then we tell everybody what we need to do, what are the tasks, what's the plan. We have to explain why we need to do that initiative, why we need to change, why we need to transform, and bring people along. Absolutely essential. It's a lesson that I've learned over and over again. You tend to really move too quickly. And when people do not understand, they're not committed. Maybe they comply with the task, but they're not really committed to the work. The next one is engagement. And we were talking earlier with David around this science is called design thinking, which is how do you bring the users at the start. We all hear the term change management. Most of the time that I've seen change management, the solution has already been designed. We're about to implement and we're communicating. My last company, one of my direct reports grabbed me by the neck and said, not so fast. That does not work here. You have to co-create, co-design. You have to bring people along. You have to bring them in before you even have an idea on how you're going to solve it. And that design thinking, it really is impactful. It's about iterating. It's about bringing the different users to understand the problem we're trying to solve and how to resolve it. It builds that commitment. Outcomes. I always say purpose and outcomes creates the North Star. When you have a big transformation, multi-country, global, as a leader, you're not going to be able to be there in every single decision. So you want the teams to be able to know, okay, is that aligned to the purpose? And is that going to drive the outcomes? We tend to focus on activities. My favorite is kind of like in technology. Hey, we went live. Great. How many people are using it? Oh, I don't know that. What's the impact? What's the effectiveness? What's the outcome? Oh, I don't know that. We haven't done it. My last job, we had implemented, it took about 18 months, a learning management system. And we, of course, celebrated. And the head of learning looked at me, he's like, Luis, I know you're happy. It was kind of hard, but you know that our job just starts now. Because it's all about the adoption. It's all about building skills. It's all about helping employees do what they do best by helping them with the skills. Engagement, or actually outcomes, is what drives that. Is that North Star. Okay, planning. I know this is a busy slide, but on the planning side, the key is to establish an effective governance. Governance does three things. One, role clarity, decision-making accountability, and where do you actually make those decisions? It's also establishing what I call a control tower. You have the plan, of course. You're now managing and leading the plan. You're monitoring. That control tower is the one that oversees are we on track or not. And the better that control tower, the better that radar, the earlier you can detect the problems. And then the final one is, of course, team culture, which you probably all heard already is a theme. Now, the team culture is kind of interesting because most of the projects we report them using the RAG color code. Red, yellow, green. In my experience, most projects are reported green. I call that the watermelon effect. It's green on the outside, and when you start digging in, it's red. It's a watermelon effect. I haven't worked in an organization where they are comfortable reporting yellow or red. Whenever I start a project, I say to the teams, it's okay to be yellow or red. As a matter of fact, the sooner we are yellow or red, the more time we have to address any issues. In one of the projects, we had 9 work streams, and I said, if one of those work streams turns yellow, the entire program turns yellow. And the CIO said, Luis, you're being so conservative. He said, I want the entire leadership team to know that that work stream needs some help. That's what I do. The rest in the hand said, I got an issue here, and it's some help, and it's some attention. Most of us report projects green until it's too late. And by that time, the problem is so big that it's so difficult to address. But that is about creating a culture where teams feel comfortable and safe bringing bad news. So as a leader, when that happens, you have to hold tight and say, tell me more. What's the issue? If you start blaming, if you start asking who made the mistake, no matter what you say, that's not enough. People are not going to bring you problems. It's how you respond to to the first problem, to the first yellow, to the first red. One of my favorite slides. 2 reasons. One, I love the quote from Cy Wickham. Your ego is not your amigo. Or I heard, recently in the book that I was listening to from Adam Grant, he says, leaders that have thin skin have thick skulls. Leaders that do not like feedback tend to work alone and tend to have more automatic control. I love that. And as a leader, you're acting as an orchestra conductor. You're not the one playing the instruments anymore. You're not the expert. And yet, that team needs to play nice, needs to collaborate to be able to play that symphony. That's the role. The role of a leader is not to have the answers, but to really foster an environment where everyone has a voice. There's research that says average teams will outperform brilliant teams if the brilliant team does not have all individuals contributing. That's a power of a team effort. That's a power of collaborating. And the final one, of course, is execution. Ideas are great, they're fancy. Execution and delivery is hard, maybe boring. But unless you execute, there's no success. Unless you execute, you're not implementing. You have to execute. And you have to celebrate as you go along the way. That's the last C. So, I'm actually doing pretty well with that time. There is a better way of leading change. This framework is not just about transformation. Whether you happen to be implementing DCTs, RPMs, it's about how do you engage the right stakeholders? How do you create that trust? Because once you have that, it's much easier to really execute. It's not easy by any means, but you're able to execute. There's a new way of leading that more and more research is being conducted. And I think we are at an inflection point where new leadership is about managing energy. New leadership is about fostering inspiration. New leadership really is about building that engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. Wonderful, very insightful, inspiring.